everybody. This is Eva Hussein from Polaron, welcoming you from Melbourne. Today, I'm not in my house. I'm not in my office. I am at the IPA event. So IPA stands for Australian Institute for Polish Affairs, and we are having a party, which I might show you a bit of later on. But before we do, I wanted to really warmly welcome Marta Daszkiewicz-Daniszewska. So she's our business unit manager in Poland. Good morning to you, Marta.
Good morning. Hello. So I am in our office in Poland right now.
That's good, and we can see the buildings behind you. Whereas yeah. I'm at the University of Melbourne, in case anybody's wondering. So today we're going to be talking about something that doesn't sound too sexy, but it's a really important and interesting topic, and that is about complex administrative procedures. Marta, why do you think we're talking about that?
Why do we talk about it? Because I think that we are talking about it because acquiring Polish passport, it's not only acquiring a decision of confirmation of Polish citizenship, because it's only half a success to get Polish passport. So the people, the person who wants to acquire Polish passport have to submit more formal, complex procedures during the journey for Polish passport.
Yeah, it's an excellent answer, and if I could just add to that, I would also say that people often think, how hard can it be, right? I was born, my father's Polish. How hard can it be to get Polish citizenship? But in fact, it is pretty hard in many different ways. And one of them is when something happened in your life or your ancestors' life that doesn't match the Polish system. So essentially what we're talking about are complex things like adoption, divorces, gender reassignment. We might be talking about, what else could you include in that bucket that's called complex administrative procedures?
So for the first instance, I would say that sometimes transcriptions of vital records could cause some problems during this procedure, because there could be some data discrepancies between marriage and birth certificates. So while we are doing transcriptions into Polish vital record system, there could be some problems. So that for the first instance, it could be problematic here.
Right, and it's something as simple as a Polish character that doesn't exist in English, like L or L. Or it could be the fact that somebody was born Marcinkowska, as I was, and then I became Marcinkowski. So the Polish system cannot quite reconcile or understand even that you would do that. And I think when we were preparing for this session, we did say that it's a cultural difference really, and a systems difference, where Poland's very precise and very demanding about how information is handled. Would you mind just commenting on that a little bit?
Yes. So basically why we are doing the confirmation of Polish citizenship, we are also doing transcriptions of the vital records. So the transcriptions means that you are exchanging your foreign birth certificate and probably marriage certificate into the Polish ones. And then this vital records, the data are transferred into the electronic, but inside this electronic system, there's an existence of the documents. But when you're applying for Polish passport, you have to also apply for PESEL number. And then the data from the electronic system of vital records are transferred to the PESEL system. And the PESEL system is about personal data. So all the data should be fixed in there, should match to themselves inside the system. That's why all the discrepancies between vital records should be fixed, because the system should be consistent.
Right. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me and you who actually understand the Polish system. But for a lot of clients, it's like, what do you mean I have to change my name? So they might, you know, in a place like Australia, even America, I think there's a lot of flexibility with how the names are handled, for example, as one example. And, you know, you can change your name here in Australia once a year. You just have to complete an application form, and nobody even asks you why you would do that, but you just can. In Poland, all these procedures are a lot more strict, and they're more discretionary, I guess is the way to describe it. Yes, so the registrar at the civil registry office may deny your request as well. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. So first of all, you have to apply for the change of name, and you have to have good reasonable thing to apply for the change of name. For example, if your name is ridiculous, or if you use another name in another country, so then it seems to be reasonable for Polish officer. Mm-hmm. But there's always a chance that you will have denied of the change of name.
Mm-hmm. In case they, you know, they might deem it unreasonable, as you said. So what you've just described, Marta, is this, that when you are born in another jurisdiction, in another country, you come with a birth certificate to a civil registry office, and you say to them, I'd like my birth certificate to be registered. So they look at the information in your original birth certificate, and they make a transcription. In other words, they can only put in the Polish birth certificate what's already in the English birth certificate, or you know, the foreign birth certificate, yeah? And sometimes it doesn't match. So, you know, in some jurisdictions, like in America, instead of the name of the city on a birth certificate, they might put a name of a county or a state. And then we struggle matching those requirements with what's required in Poland, yeah? And also marriages and things like that, yeah?
Yes, exactly. So in the situation like that, you have to supply another documents which will show the of birth, which could be a city or a village, but not a state.
Mm-hmm. And essentially it is because yeah, go on,
yeah.
go on. Sorry.
That's because Polish birth certificates form have the field which is called place of birth, and it should be place of birth like a city or like a village, but not a state.
Mm-hmm. And that's just one example of what happens and how we need to bridge those gaps between documentation. Another good one that I was hoping we could discuss are marriage certificates. And that sounds simple enough, but of course it isn't, because in some jurisdictions, you have same-sex marriages. In other jurisdictions, you might have divorces that are very, very different in its form and how they work in other countries. So how does that work in Poland? What happens?
So the same-sex marriages are not able to make transcription into the Polish one. Just it could seem silly, but it's because the marriage certificate form in Poland contain a field which is called data of husband and data of the women, of the wife, and from this reason, it's not possible to transfer the data of the people who have the same sex into this Polish marriage certificate. That's the same reason that children of the same sex couples are not able to have Polish birth certificate, because inside the Polish birth certificate, mm-hmm. there should be the data of the father and of the mother, not of the parent and another parent.
Right. And I think it's also written into the Polish constitution that the definition of family is a husband and wife, essentially, exactly. Man and woman. So I think often what happens is that we do get a lot of questions about that. So this is why we're talking about it. It's not particularly controversial. It's just that there's no instrument really, essentially, from what you're saying, in the Polish law to enable those activities to take place. That's what you're telling us, yeah?
Yes, so it's like I said, it seems to be silly because on the one hand it's just a matter of the form, but it's strictly connected with the Polish constitution and also family and the guardianship code, when there is a definition of the family and the origin of the child. And the family, the marriage is the relationship between woman and man. So that's the problem in Poland, that registration of the birth certificate, of marriage certificate, where we have the same sex, it's basically against Polish constitutional law. So the courts in Poland are discussing this matter. It's not that we are ignoring this issue, and because it's also when the child can't have Polish birth certificate, the child also can't have Polish passport. So on the other hand, it's like denying for this child of Polish citizenship to perform civil duties.
Right. So what we're describing, if you don't mind me just summarizing, is a situation where a child is adopted in a foreign state. So let's say America, for argument's sake, it's adopted by two women, let's say, or two men. That transaction, if you like, cannot be transferred onto the Polish law because there's no instrument, and any thing like a birth certificate has to have a mother in it. So if you were to go back to the natural mother, which you could potentially do, and enter her details onto a birth certificate, then that mother in Poland at least would have the rights over that child. And yet she signed them over because the child's adopted, yeah? And the other issue, of course, is that the Polish government or the voivodeship office can confirm a child's citizenship, because clearly if they have a Polish parent, they're Polish. But the registry offices cannot register the birth certificate because of those technical reasons. So I think it's really important to say that the bureaucrats might want to do it, but they just can't. And the constitutional rights of families are paramount to everything, of a family as a concept in Poland. But above that, there's the right of a child to have documents. So this is where I think you were telling us when we were preparing for this session that these discussions are still happening in Poland, and they're very robust and very people are very keen to sort it out. Is that right, or am I wrong?
Yes, exactly. So the courts are divided in their opinions, because some administrative courts said yes, the child's right to have the documents are higher than the not registration the parents into the birth certificate. But I think that from this point of view, they are so divided that without changing the law, for this moment, there is no possibility to register this birth certificate and to apply it for passport for the child.
In a way, it's in limbo. The system is stuck where they enable. So is something like that able to be taken to the European courts? Would that be, for example, in your opinion, breaching the child's human rights? Like if a country, and Poland's not the only one, but by the way, of course, there's Italy, there's many other countries that have the same issue. Would have people been successful taking it to the European institutions, or is that out of question?
So I have not heard about any success, but I have heard about that people are trying. So maybe some kind of cases are proceedings in European courts, and we should wait for the answer.
Yeah, we're watching that space, and it usually takes a long time. It takes years for those things to be argued and determined. What about divorces? What happens with divorces? We won't tell anyone, Marta, but we have a couple of clients that have been divorced like up to 5 or 7 times, right? So what sort of a headache is that for us?
So with the divorces, we have a headache because the divorces which took place before 1st of July 2009 should be applied in Polish court. So should be applied, should be registered via Polish court. And only the divorces which took place after this date may be simply registered via Polish Civil Registry Office. So if you divorced before this data, you have to have divorce in Polish court.
But of course, if somebody's been divorced 4 times, what we have to do is register the first birth certificate, marriage certificate, sorry.
Yeah.
Get that person divorced, register the second marriage certificate, get that.
Exactly.
So, and not only that, we have to get involved the former partner or the former spouse, because they have to give permission for that to happen. And if it is prior to 2009, that just means, a court procedure as well, yeah?
Yes. So we have to have the data of the husband or wife of the second party, and sometimes we have to have agreement.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
For this divorce, or we have to make statement that we don't have contact with him. Another party.
So. You see, I told you that there's a party happening, so I was asked to move, so don't tell anybody. So we're going to have to go. Okay, we keep going. So you're saying that the spouse is required to be contacted because they need to be aware of that procedure taking place in Poland. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
And then, but why does Poland even want to know that somebody's divorced?
Because to register the next marriage, you have to first register your divorce.
But it's required. It's required for your passport to be.
Yes, it's also required.
Is that right?
It's also required to the passport, because inside the special system you will have to put the information if you were married, if you are divorced. There's one of the obligatory information which should be inside the special system.
Okay, because otherwise Poland doesn't know whether you're married, divorced, or what your marital status is. Is that right?
Yes, exactly, and they don't know what surname do you have, and if it is the surname after the husband or not, or your family name.
So in terms of your work, what that's describing, I guess what we talked about is complexities of a system that's cross-jurisdictional. So in other words, what happens is that you might get a document in America or Australia or wherever, and then when you try and register that in Poland or make certain points in Poland, they don't work because the law is very different and the system is very different.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the reason. That's why to register divorce via court, we would have to have original or certified copy of the divorce, but from court, not from registry office.
Okay. And what about if you want to change your name? Do you have to be a citizen of Poland first, or yes. Can you just okay.
No. You have to be citizen of Poland, so you have to have decision of confirmation of citizenship or Polish passport, and now and then you are able to apply for the change of name.
And the other point I wanted to raise with you or discuss is, in places like Australia, America, but also in Poland, there are people who might have a gender reassignment procedure. How is that handled in Poland?
So it should be done via court. So if you want to change your sex, you have to go to the court, and after the court will give you approval, you can change your sex inside your documents.
Okay, and what will your documents look like? So, for example, in Australia, if you change your gender, if you change your sex, you'll get a birth certificate that does not state that you have previously had one. Is that the same in
Yes.
Poland?
Yes, it's the same in Poland. So you will have new birth certificate with another data that you wish to have, and another sex that was changed.
That was assigned to you. Okay, wonderful. Well, look, that gives us a really good understanding of just some of the procedures that we're dealing with. But I guess what we were trying to say here is that something somewhat simple can blow out into something really complicated because you're dealing with different systems, essentially. I'm going to hand over to Emily now, who has been assisting us today because it is Andrea's birthday, in case you didn't know. So she went out to dinner with her wonderful husband. So Emily's standing in. Emily, what questions do we have, please?
Hello. Yes, I do have a couple of questions, and happy birthday to Andrea.
Yeah.
I have a question about IVF. So about registering documents in the case where there's a sperm donor and I guess the biological father isn't involved anymore.
So in that case, you have to know that in Poland there is no way to leave empty space in the inside the birth certificate with the data of the father. So we have something like covering data when mother could choose the name of the father, and the surname will be the same like the mother. So the situation is covered with these procedures here.
So again, it goes to the protection of the child. And for example, if the mother doesn't know or doesn't want to nominate the name of the father, they can, like a covering data or a made up name essentially can be put on the birth certificate. And that is to avoid embarrassment or for the child to be disadvantaged in any way. And Marta, is it true that the husband's always the father of the child, regardless of who the real father is? Can you explain that?
Yes,
that thing?
Yes. According to Polish law, the husband of the mother is always seen like the father of her child. If the child was born during the marriage, her husband is always father of the child. Of course, you are allowed to go to the court and deny the fatherhood. And all the mother and both the mother of the father could do that, or the child if the child is adult. But for the first instance, always the husband of the mother is put into the birth certificate.
Interesting. Emily, what other questions do we have? We've got quite a few, I think.
We have questions about timelines as well. So you were talking about court proceedings before. How long does that take? How long does registration through the Civil Registry Office take?
So simple transcription foreign vital records into the Polish system should take no longer than 2 months. But when we are acquiring some kind of problem, so some kind of discrepancies between the data, it could take longer.
And I think the divorce proceedings for divorces before 2009, because they go through the courts, that can take up to even 12 months because it's an actual hearing. Longer. And I think you also need a lawyer to represent you. Is that right? In the courts,
exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And is it just one court in Poland that assesses those cases in Warsaw, or are there many courts?
For people who not live in Poland, it's the court of Warsaw.
Yeah. So you probably have to wait for the hearing to be appointed or announced, and then it takes forever. Yeah, okay. All right, what other questions do we have then?
I have to go back to when we were talking about transgender people before. Have we ever handled a case of change of gender? How did that go? What happened?
We did. And we were all very nervous about it because, you know, when you read stuff in the news, you kind of might be worried about attitudes or things like that. And in the end, once we understood what the procedure needed to be, it actually went very smoothly. And I have to tell you that everyone was super respectful. super helpful. Like I'm talking about the offices in Poland, because we had to deal with quite a few. And in the end, our client, so our client was confirmed citizen as a male gender, and then changed his gender to female. And you know, there was a lot of anxiety when she first came to us. We were like, oh, that's going to be hard, but it wasn't. Like, we just needed to speak to the people involved in different offices, and I have to tell you, I was super impressed with how that was handled. And I think we have a couple of sort of complex adoptions and things like that going on at the moment, and I think there'll be more and more. And I'm hoping to hear your opinion, Marta, but I think eventually the Polish lawmakers will have to start being responsive to the community needs, or to what's happening, because there'll be more and more of situations like that. Yeah.
Yes, and I am really expecting this to happen
quite soon, hopefully. All right, so I also have another question. Just let me just read it here. It's a question about change of name, and whether if it's already done in another jurisdiction, does it get registered in Poland, or do you have to change your name in Poland? So let's say I have a name, I was born under a particular name, then I changed it in Australia. Can I register that if I'm not a citizen, or do I have to wait till I become a citizen?
If you are not a citizen, you can register it into the Polish birth certificate. If you are not a citizen, but after you get your decision of confirmation of Polish citizenship, the only way to make a change of name is to apply for a decision of the change of name.
Okay. And just about your own background, because I know that you studied this law inside out and up and down. And what are you seeing? Are you seeing more flexibility in terms of the laws changing, or are they really strict? What's happening in that space?
Oh, it's hard to say. I was not thinking about it, but I think that yes, the law is changing for more flexibility now. We have the Polish government and Polish court sees some problems which occurred in a couple of years, and they are trying to, especially courts, are trying to be more flexible inside the law, but sometimes it's just impossible. So the community in Poland and some of the courts sees the need for changing the law, for more flexibility into the in the law, inside the law.
And I think yeah, go on. No, I've interrupted you.
That the changes should happen soon.
And I think, you know, Poland gets a bit of bad press about all of those topics, but the reality is that the law is not keeping up with the community demand. So, and even in Australia, we got same-sex marriage legislation only a couple of years ago. So I think it's all relative, and I think, you know, the Polish lawmakers and the community is quite acutely aware of the situation and wanting to make changes, but some things are slow. And I think there is a bit of resistance from all kinds of quarters in Poland too, for religious reasons or ethical reasons or whatever. So hopefully those issues will get a bit more reconciled. And hopefully you got a really nice look into how complex our work can be. So when you are, you know, discussing your Polish citizenship, for some people it will go straight through within minutes. Well, not minutes, but you know what I mean. For other people, it takes longer because of the complexity of the paperwork that we sometimes have to handle. So I'm going to quickly show you the party if anyone wants to see. That's the party. It's a people party. So that was a very special event today, a little bit different. Normally I'm a lot more composed, but I had to, you know, play it by ear and run around the room. Marta, thank you so very much for spending your morning with us and explaining all the procedures that we covered. I'm sure that if people have more questions, they can reach out to you. And I know that you're one of the most prominent specialists in this field. So I just wanted to say thank you. And wish you a Merry Christmas. I'm sure I'll be speaking to you, but if I don't see you on camera, have a wonderful Christmas with your family. And we'll talk next year.
Thank you. You too.